A biblical perspective on life, culture and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
Australia's largest Christian non-Catholic university, known as Alphacrucis University College, has released a paper recently called Rebuilding Right Relationships. It covers loneliness, domestic violence, fertility, housing and schools. And the Director of Government Relations, Nick Jensen, joins us today to discuss this paper and the heart behind it. Nick, welcome.
Thanks, Andrew. Good to be here.
Nick, it's great to have you. As I said, a lot of people in Australia may not realise that Alphacrucis University College has 4,000 students, a campus in every capital city in Australia. That's quite an influence, isn't it?
Look, it is. It's about 76, 77 years old now. Started as a small Pentecostal Bible college and is now built to one of the largest faith-based tertiary providers in the country. So my role is to help them and the university pathway, as well as contribute from a higher education perspective into the public sphere. So I guess that's what this report is trying to do.
Yeah, and it's a good story because like everything that starts with, when you want to call it a sense of God or a revival or a rekindling of the Christian heart, in what the Pentecostal phenomena was, it's good to see that develop into something with a little bit more substance and a little bit more practical outworking, isn't it? Such as your university college and such as this Rebuilding Right Relationships report you guys have released.
Yeah, look, I guess for the last 20 years, when you look at the interaction of religion and politics, there's been a lot of defensiveness from the church and from Christian institutions as the culture has shifted over time. Now, this has been important work as kind of laws come in and we try and say, well, this may not be a good contribution to society, this particular law. But I think what we've neglected is the creativity and innovation that comes from the church. And so realizing that we can bring new and fresh ideas into policy, and that actually it's really important for this contribution to come out of the churches, the communities, the educational institutions. There's a real opportunity there that we think hasn't been taken as much as it should over this last couple of decades.
And so here we are, Nick Jensen, the Director of Government Relations for the Alphacrucis University College. And how have you been received in government circles, Nick, as you've been endeavouring to communicate and build good relationship there?
Look, I think government responds really well when you come to them with ideas and with solutions rather than just a handout or complaining about things. So one of the best examples at my work at Alphacrucis has been developing new models of teacher training, where instead of teachers being trained in the universities, they're actually trained in the schools in front of the classrooms from day one. And we saw a really positive response from government saying this is a wonderful idea, get those teachers clinically trained by the industry instead of in the ivory towers. And so we've been piloting that for 5 years, which is now in over 50 schools around the country. So I think, again, that innovation that can come through from the church, from ideas, from those communities, is the way forward in contributing and loving our neighbour through policy.
Yeah, I love it. And I mean, obviously the topics in this report about rebuilding right relationships such as loneliness and schooling and domestic violence and even fertility and housing, they're all really hot topics at the moment, aren't they?
They are. We call them wicked policy, not in the sense of being evil, but wicked policy is a term that when they're problems that are so complex that there are no easy solutions. And every time you try and fix it, it has consequences down the road. And so we thought we brought together a group of expert policy Christian thinkers from around the country together for a few days. And we thought we'd dig into this and realizing that these wicked problems aren't going to be solved unless the church is involved, that actually the state needs the church to be involved in these things to try and find solutions. And at the heart of it, really the centerpiece was around relationships, that what the church primarily is expert in, and often what government seems to neglect in their policies. They often look at the economic sustainability or the environmental sustainability, but miss relational sustainability, that actually good policy brings people together and contributes in that sense. So that was our centerpiece. And then we looked through a relational lens as to how it could impact these different areas and what pilots might come out of it, what innovations could come out of it that we should be exploring.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about that as you're talking, and it's like, I guess the whole Bible really is about relationship, isn't it? Right relationship with God and right relationship with our fellow humans. And yeah, what a great opportunity for Alphacrucis University College to really communicate that on a government level, that this is what the church does. Because you're right, I mean, churches create great relationships, don't they, with people, for people, and with God.
Absolutely. When you think about the main themes of sermons, forgiveness and love and mercy, they're all very relational terms. But I must say as well, it's not just Alphacrucis involved in this. We've partnered up with a range of different organizations. The two other main ones. One is Publica, which is a Christian research and public policy organization aimed at strengthening family and community relationships. And the other key one involved was the Lachlan Macquarie Institute, which is a training program for Christian cultural and political leaders. We recognize that we actually need a network of institutions and individuals engaged in order to start solving these problems.
Yeah, excellent. Well, I want to just get you to touch on the topics and really share your passion for these areas. Let's start with loneliness. Like, what are you suggesting to government? How do we fix loneliness? Because it's a massive issue in our society, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely huge. And I guess the research, it's been called a loneliness epidemic. That's how bad it is. And the research is showing that loneliness is likely to have profound impacts, not only on people's mental health, but physical health as well. And surprisingly, actually 18 to 24-year-olds are the loneliest age group, followed closely by the 55 to 65 cohort. So when we wrestled with it and had some experts talk to us about it, Professor Patrick Parkinson was the one who spoke on this. He talked about some of the ideas of how we promote friendships, how we can provide more support for separated parents, which are particularly at risk of loneliness, how we can develop workplace communities and put more research into it. So that's an issue that is very close to Publica's heart particularly. And again, the churches play a key role in supporting people in our societies, our neighbors who are lonely. We have this ready-made community open to everyone. And if we aren't using that capital, that relational capital, then we're probably not doing our job.
Yeah, and amazing, isn't it, that here we are, like, was it 50 years since the Beatles sang that song, and it's more relevant than ever, all the lonely people. But I'm really surprised by that stat you just read out. The 18 to 24-year-olds are one of the loneliest groups. I think I know the answer, but can you tell our listeners why that is?
Oh, look, there'd be a wide range of reasons, but certainly through COVID, we saw isolation increase. Through an increase in social media means that people aren't going out as much. They're connecting only at a shallow level online and often not developing the social skills needed to develop solid and deep friendships. And I guess the decline of involvement in community activity also sees more isolation. So it is a wicked policy. How we support this is open to anyone, but there are things that we can do starting at the grassroots level to reach out to people and show them that there are friendships available and there are communities available that will support them and are more fun than just hanging out with the video games. Yeah,
well, when you say there are things that we can do at the grassroots level, give me some examples of those things that you're suggesting.
Oh, well, I mean, my local church, for example, meets in a park out in the open, so open to anyone, and we put on a lunch afterwards, as I'm sure many churches do. So those contributions, inviting people to meals, following up individuals and inviting them to youth groups is always a big thing. My eldest has just started a youth group, and they're just so full of life and full of joy. And I think most people, those young people, don't realize how wonderful this kind of community can be and how important it can be for youth development.
Yeah, and you said many of our listeners attend church and they may have a small group. And I remember one of the greatest small groups I've ever been to is when we just used to do dinners and say to everyone, invite your friends that don't have faith, that don't know Jesus. And you just get all these people coming, and everyone loves food, don't they? And everyone loves good conversation. And everyone just loves being around people who are nice to them. And it's a very easy, practical way, isn't it, for everyone, every Christian, to potentially reach out to people who are a little bit lonely.
Yeah, I think that's right. And again, if you look through a relational lens, it actually becomes very easy about what are the priorities in life. And it is about people. It is about your neighbor who's next door or that kid, down the road who doesn't have as many friends. It really is up to us to take those steps and pour out love, as the Beatles also sang about.
Well, let's have a Beatles.
They got it off Jesus, though.
I was thinking about John Lennon the other day. What a bad call that was. We're bigger than Jesus now. Like, no one remembers John Lennon's death or his birthday or anything really other than his songs. So don't think he quite got there. But just quickly, domestic violence is a very big issue in society. What is your message to government about DV?
Look, what we focused on, actually, our government have got a program in place and they've been working hard on this. But one of the things we focused on is recognizing that there actually is domestic violence going on in the church as well, which sometimes we gloss over or we deny that it's an issue there in our own communities. So I think with this issue, there does need to be a sense of starting at home and identifying whether there are people who are demonstrating risk factors or we can see that there might be issues there, and making sure our pastors and our leaders are aware of what to look for and how to support. That's probably the first step. But when it comes to government, again, it really is important that the government work with the church, which has got such rich communities all over the country and can easily run these kind of programs and support services for people in this situation. The stats are shocking. 1 in 6 women have experienced violence by an intimate partner sometime in their life. 1 in 16 men, not as prevalent, but still a key stat. So this is another huge issue, and the church needs to not only open their eyes a bit to this, but be willing to step up, I think. And we've certainly got some ideas of how that can be done as well.
Yeah, Nick, it's really good talking to you and really well done. I mean, this report is very topical. It's very relevant. We could talk about all these subjects today, but we don't have time. But I just want to thank you so much, Nick Jensen, who is the Director of Government Relations at the Alphacrucis University College. Over 4,000 students in Australia now, and they've released a report called Rebuilding Right Relationships, and it's really topical, really current, and really touching some nerves in Australian society. But Nick, any final thoughts for us before you finish up today?
Look, only that this is a beginning point, I think. We want to develop a movement within the church and faith-based individuals that are looking as being creative and innovative in policy. And so this report is really a chance to just get the discussions going. But we'd like to see more come out of this now, of the ideas, exploring more topics and seeing pilots on the ground coming out of these discussions that we're having. So this is just the start, and we're really excited about where it could go.
Yeah, very exciting. And there may be some listeners, we are Australia-wide, who are thinking, gee, I'd like to study at the Alphacrucis University College. If someone wants to log into your website and start a journey of further study with Alphacrucis, Nick, what's the best website for them to log into?
Yeah, it's www.ac.edu.au. A range of courses that are on offer, not only around theology, but leadership and education and social service. So that certainly is an area to start if you're considering engaging more broadly in these areas.
Nick Jensen, Director of Government Relations at Alphacrucis, I want to thank you so much for joining us on 2020 Today.
Thanks, Andrew. Great to be here.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.